Welcome to the Dark Ozarks. We are discussing experience of the early immigrants in the Ozarks and the effect of the Scots Irish on the Ozarks. We will get back to that in a minute, but first we want to remind you that Dark Ozarks podcast is now available on Branson Podcast Network, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, or about any other podcast platform. So how did the old world and its traditions prepare people for the frontier of the Ozarks?
There are several possible answers, really. The Scotch Irish found a landscape very familiar to their homes in the old country here. Many of their traditions and myths dealt with problems in a difficult environment, and many of their skills and customs were uniquely tailored to taming the Ozark Mountains. It is a hard choice.
We'll return to the question of how the Scots Irish adapted to and settled in the Ozarks. But first, we want to invite you to like, follow, subscribe to Dark Ozarks on Facebook, Instagram, and here on YouTube, as well as your favorite podcast platform. We also invite you to become a Dark Ozarks subscriber on Facebook. On the Dark Ozarks Facebook page, click subscribe, have your login information ready, and join Dark Ozarks behind the scenes for only $4.99 per month.
Your $4.99 per month subscription allows you to come with us on paranormal investigations, deep dive research, and topics too controversial for public view. The next 100 subscribers will be entered in a drawing for a free Dark Ozarks t-shirt and an exclusive signed first run copy of the book Dark Ozarks, The Spooklight. Subscribe today to be entered in the drawing.
And now you can get Dark Ozarks t-shirts for sale at darkozarks.com and paranormalsciencelab.com.
We encourage you to check out Always Buying Books in Joplin, Missouri, in person and online, on Facebook, and at the website alwaysbuyingbooks.com for all of your reading needs, including a large section on the paranormal, history, and more. Not to mention, the building is haunted. Tell Bob and Elise that we sent you.
We also want to thank Beard Engine Brewing Company in Alba, Missouri. Beard Engine Brewing is the only English-style brewery in Missouri and has been twice named Missouri's best brewery by the Missouri Brewers Association. Great beer and great food in a historical building with a noir past. And yes, their building is also haunted. Tell Nate and Tiff that we sent you.
And we've done investigations at both locations.
Yes, we have. Fun stuff.
Yes, it is. So let's talk about, first of all, the topic for tonight. While it might seem simply historical, has been rife with conflict since its very, very beginnings in the early 1600s. And a lot of people would not necessarily tie European history to the Ozarks from the early 1600s to today, but the Scotch Irish do that. And the first conflict to deal with, which I've been dealing with since my early days as editor of State of the Ozarks, is the argument over the term. Is it Scotch Irish or Scots Irish?
And you know, as so often is the case with both the Irish and the Scots and the Scotch Irish, the answer is yes.
Yes, I know. And actually, coming back to, if memory serves, one of our first joint, perhaps informal and unanticipated collaborations was online when someone was taking me to task because I had used Scotch Irish in an article, published it on social media. And as someone with extraordinary Scottish heritage credentials, you came to my defense in the comments.
That is true.
Oh, do you want to talk now? My ancestry is Romano-British, is Welsh. My ancestry is Welsh, also English, also German, but I definitely carry the Celtic flag proudly. That said, to my knowledge, my heritage is definitely south of Hadrian's Wall. Yours, however, is not. You have an extraordinary Scottish pedigree, and I'd like to just share a little bit about that, because the ethnic ancestry, when it comes to who gets bent out of shape about what term, suddenly becomes important. And
True. My ancestry is predominantly Scottish. Livingstones and the Nichols, from Scotland proper, and made their way. Well, part of the family made their way over here in the 1640s, and some of them in like 1660s. So landing in New Amsterdam, and others landing in Massachusetts, some of them ending up at Salem, actually, for the witch trials. I actually have an ancestor that was first accused of witchcraft and then sat on one of the juries. Don't ask me. He was a sea captain. And so I'm not sure how he managed that one, but and so but my Livingston line included early governors of New York, New Jersey, etc. The Nichols ended up going south and coming through Appalachia, and ultimately going to Texas and then Kansas. And so there you go. I also have a little bit of German, a little bit of English, and maybe a splash of Irish.
And for people who might just be catching up, under the reign of James I, there were an era of, oh wait, I was going to say there was an era of Irish uprisings. The era is about 1,200 years long, so it's more of just an epic, actually. But and I do have Irish heritage as well, and that and I have a deep and abiding love for Irish history, both Protestant and Catholic. So I managed to just tick everyone off. But
you don't know what side of the line to stand on, huh?
I know. I'll just I'll just land at the Isle of Man and make the Vikings angry. But I do love the symbol on the Manx flag. It is legs and feet in 3 different directions, and in Manx, the slogan for the small island nation was, "Whichever way you throw me, I'll stand."
And that's rather fitting for most Celts, anyway. So.
It is. And but something happened in what is now Northern Ireland, also known as Ulster, and something that we really don't think of within these terms. And that what happened was plantation. And
which sounds very familiar to issues that happened in North America later.
It does, and we certainly think of our North American centric pre-Civil War history mindset has certain connotations with the word plantation, and this was very different in the sense that, but it was a situation of the English crown under James I essentially declaring eminent domain over 9 counties of Ireland, and then inviting lowland Scots as well as some English. And so you had Anglican and Presbyterian Scots and typically Northern English, but English moving in and displacing what was referred to as the Aboriginal Irish, the ancestral Catholic Irish, because they were causing too much trouble. And it, of course, initiated an enormous amount of hard feelings. Conflict continued as a result of that for a very long time, and to some degree is still, in present memory. And really informed, of course, it informed the history of Ireland. It informed the culture of Ireland, Scotland, Northern England, and it in many ways directed the history and much of the conflict, and certainly the internal conflict of the United Kingdom after unification in 1800. So lots and lots of issues. I think to a degree, it could be argued as one of the reasons that the Irish Republic remained neutral during World War II. Which I think is interesting. They didn't sign on.
No. Yeah, that's a whole nother subject.
It is, and but within about 100 years, there's something that I find fascinating, and you see it throughout the successive waves of empire attempting to settle the Celts culturally. And within 100 years, typically there is enough cross-pollination of ideas, among other things, that the settlers become as Celtic as, and oftentimes as troublesome to the crown as the people that they had supplanted. And
well, and to be fair, I mean, that had been going on for hundreds of years with the Scots anyway.
Well, you really have to think that London really should have thought that out a little bit.
You would have thought that, you would have thought someone had thought, wait a minute, we've been here before. But
supplant one group of troublesome Celts, and I use that term very endearingly as a troublesome Celt myself.
Yes,
with a group of potentially more troublesome Celts, and somehow be surprised that in 70 years it's not a problem.
Yeah. And people wondering again how all this ties to the Ozarks. A lot of the stereotypes and labels that have been put on Ozarkers, from redneck to hillbilly, go directly to this history. And we will be talking about this more in depth, and how the characteristics of this group of people made them fairly uniquely suited to settle the Ozarks, and how it's affected our history, as well as their lore coming through.
Absolutely. And maybe a few ghosts along the way.
So be sure and check out the long video that will be up on this subject tomorrow night. And don't forget to check out upcoming events and merchandise at darkozarks.com and paranormalsciencelab.com. Thank you again to Always Buying Books and Beard Engine Brewing Company for helping to bring the Dark Ozarks to everyone.
On the next episode, we're going to be discussing trickster lore, including trickster lore from right here in the Ozarks. Catch the Dark Ozarks podcast on Branson Podcast Network, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, or about any other podcast platform. Thank you, everyone. And remember,